All right, another week on the Michigan football film breakdown here on Michigan Insider with former Michigan offensive coordinator, a number of other stops as well. Forgive me if I don't run down your lengthy resume, Mr. Borges.
There's not enough time in the day, Sam.
Let's just say you're experienced, right? Yeah. You're experienced when it comes to the game, the X's and O's, and certainly the psychology of it as well, which is important, I think, to get into as much as we get into the X's and O's this week, because that was just an absolute thrashing that Michigan suffered last week. And, you know, admittedly, I didn't think that Michigan had much of a chance of winning that game with all of the horses they were missing heading into it. But I didn't expect it to be like that. And, you know, hey, I'm sure there are Michigan fans that watch this and say, well, why not? It happened last year. And that's kind of why. That's kind of why I didn't think it would be like that. But it was. So what's the recovery? What's the rebound? But let's start off, Al, with talking about what went wrong as far as play on the field. Let's separate the emotional side of it. You like to say, Sam, take the emotion out of it. So let's do that for a minute and just talk about what went wrong on the day. Oh, yes, they got blown off the football, but tactically, what did we see? I saw Michigan on defense not being able to set an edge all night. That's how you get receivers with over 100 yards rushing. On offense, they certainly could not do the things that we talked about them doing or trying to do when it came to augmenting the run game. Al, they tried to get outside. They tried to run outside. They tried to throw it outside, you know, for add-ons in the run game or run controls that you call them. None of those things worked. And it's a snowball effect because we also saw an instance for the first time this year where Joe Milton looked truly rattled. I thought Joe was really, really good in week one. He was, you know, I thought he caught too much flack for weeks 2 and 3. I thought he did more good than bad in those 2 weeks. I thought we saw some progression from week 2 to week 3. But this game, it was just a complete outlier. I mean, total and complete outlier from what we saw. I mean, there were times in weeks 1 through 3 where you saw the inexperience kind of show through, but it was that way for the entirety of the game for him against Wisconsin. Al, so I'm curious your take.
Well, Sam, this is I've been listening to your radio show, not necessarily when it was on, but maybe some of the podcasts after the fact. And we're going to declare this the no whining zone, okay? Because for the first 3 days, there's been enough whining and crying to build a river, okay? And for good reason. I mean, there's been some stuff that this was not a good football game, and this was not a good game easy to find a lot of good plays, you know, which is unfortunate. But this is about what went wrong, not the residuals of it, but just actually what went wrong, what we felt, what could have been done better. And I think one of the biggest things, and we're, you know, this is a broken record here, but again, another week where we're saying we can't run the ball and the running backs aren't getting involved. And finally, it really did catch up with the quarterback, because you're right. I agree. I think that in the first game that Joe Milton played very well for his first start and was functional in the next 2 games. But this game, he became dysfunctional, and that hurt him, and that hurt the team. And not that it's all his fault, because it wasn't, far from it. But that did happen, and the run game continues to haunt the quarterback and the whole team, for that matter. Early turnovers were demoralizing. Okay, the first play of the game, you get a ball picked off that went through a guy's hands. Now that takes its toll on the quarterback's psyche. And then the second interception, which we'll talk about later, was simply an inability to look the defense off. He got his eyes stolen. We'll talk more about that. I won't go too much detail. Inefficiency on third down. Again, we're struggling on third down to keep the chains running. When you look at it and you see there's only 43 plays run by the offense, you're going to be complaining about backs not getting the ball enough, the receivers not catching up, not enough touches. There's just no way that anybody is going to be happy when you only get to run 43 plays. And turnovers and 3 and outs are big part of that, and the ball control style that Wisconsin plays all contributed to that. Had a couple of crucial busts in the clutch. One inside the 1 yard line, crucial fourth down. We had a mistake that killed them. Killed them. I mean, they were losing in the game, but it was a chance to get a shot in the arm, get back into the game because they weren't out of the game yet. Everybody wants to write them off at 28-0. Hell, you got 30 minutes to score 20. If they can score 28, you can score 28. Oh, you may need a little help with the turnover too. But you get back in the game. No reason why you can't. Defensively, they just struggled with misdirection offense. I mean, they got hurt with I think 3 naked plays, 3 reverses. Jet action counterplay where everybody's zigging and zagging in different directions, and I think the second level of defense was a little confused and it looked kind of bad. And then obviously the jet action runs were 100%. Every one was a hit, which you might by that meaning it was a 4-yard gain or more. And again, we'll detail what they did to make that happen, but they just struggled with the jet sweeps. Play passes, when you run the ball for over 300 yards and you got a quarterback that's reasonably efficient, he doesn't have to be great. He's going to hit some play action passes because you're going to get the core of the defense up anytime you show run. And there's going to be some open receivers. So that happened several times. But I think at this point as a coach, you got to, there can't be any beatdowns. Everybody wants to get in there and rip them and do this or that. I mean, right now they kind of think they suck. Don't confirm it. As a coach, don't confirm it because 90% of teaching is believing in the pupil, even when there's no evidence to believe you should. But they don't need a beat down. They need coaching. They need not necessarily get back to basics. I hear a lot. We got to get back to basics. No, you got to get back to what was successful. And if it isn't basic, if it's a little more complicated, that's fine. If they're good at it. If they're not good at it, then they aren't good at it and don't do it. Okay. You got to look at what you're doing, how you're doing it, who's doing it, and when you're calling it. Mm-hmm. That has to be, as a coach, that's what I'm looking at. When we're playing bad, what are we doing? Is it too much for the players? Are we asking kids that we got the wrong guys in the wrong spot? Are we giving guys a ball more than they deserve it? How we're doing it, what's our schematic, who's doing it, and as a coach, when am I making the call? Because if I'm timing the call out bad, that's my fault too, okay? So I think, too, you got to eliminate the kids that won't compete, and that this is where you find out who will and who won't. Because coaching is about teaching kids how to compete, not just teaching them how to play football. They got to know that when we're down 28-0, that I'm really watching now. I mean, I was watching at the beginning of the game, but I'm really watching. I want to see body language when the score is 28-0. Who's giving up and who's continuing to play hard? Because the guys that I want to play when the game's tight are the guys that aren't giving up when the score's 28-0.
Obviously a big focus in this game, quarterback play. There's a lot to unpack there. We certainly will get into the edge of the defense, but I think it's important to start with what I think is, as you say, you definitely search for the guys who are going to play from start to finish like the game is nothing. That's just getting back to basics. But I don't think that was the issue with Joe. I think that with Joe, it just watching him in this game compared to others, it just seemed like the moment got to him a little more. I mean, we can't get inside his head, but you could. I think there are certain conclusions you have to draw from him. I mean, there are times in past games where he didn't see the field, but this game, it was dramatic, and you could see it affect play calling. That's when it got glaring. And I'm curious. I want to get into this with you, Al, if you've been there, because there was a sequence. I want to say it was in the second quarter where they come out and he has an errant pass to the flat. And then on second down, he pulls it on his own read. And I don't think he should have pulled it on his own read. And there was a 3rd and 8, and they called another run play. And when you see that, Al, I mean, I don't know what it said to you, but it says to me, wow, they really think he's not seeing it. And maybe he wasn't seeing it at that point, because then they pulled him after he threw, he threw a I guess it was a fade or a 9 route. He threw into the teeth of cover 2 with a safety over the top. Easily could have been picked, and they pulled him after that.
Yeah.
And so, highlighting these things, me and I know you, we don't pick on guys. That's not what we do. But just trying to figure out what they saw, what Joe saw, and what the coaches saw that made them say, we got to do something different. And it just felt like, Al, and you're the play caller, you're the coach. It just felt like they didn't trust his eyes anymore. And let's go to the first example of bad eyes. All right, so this was the second interception. This is after in the first series, he throws it to Eubanks, who took full blame. He took the blame for that interception. He said he wasn't expecting the ball to come to him on that route, but you always got to expect it, he said. And he should have caught it. He didn't. It deflected off of him, interception. Not Joe's fault. But this one, Al, this one absolutely was. And this one was unfortunately a sign of things to come. So talk us through this as I let it roll.
Well, the one thing I liked about coaching at Michigan, with the quarterbacks, is those wings on the helmet tell you right where the quarterback's looking. It's not, there's no mystery to it. If those wings are tilted one direction, that's the way he's looking. You can tell no matter what the vantage point is. And in this point, he's got 2 little hooking routes outside, okay? And he's got the tight end running through the post. Now, he can hit either one of those 2 hooking routes, but the guy that we circled there is a guy that he's got to hold him long enough and not look that direction so his eyes don't pull him into the throwing line. You see, the whole time Joe drops, that guy is doing nothing but looking at Joe's eyes. See that?
So it looked like, if we go back here, all right, so he's looking down the center of the field right now, right? As he
temporarily,
immediately he turns his head
right
to the target.
For your first 3 steps, Sam, your helmet's got to be straight up the field, okay? Because if you abort that before you hit the back of your drop, because when your right foot hits the ground, now you got to be ready to launch. You can't be looking down the middle field. You got to find a throwing lane, right? But until that time now, you want to keep that guy believing that you could be going anywhere with the ball, okay? But see, as soon as his head tilts right, that linebacker tilts right, okay? Now, if you look at it from this view, you can see, and I think it's, is it Ronnie Bell or number 0, or I can't tell who it is. He's open. He's open, but because he's beat his guy. But he's not open because the linebacker buzzed the route. Now, what do I mean by buzz the route? Buzz the route means he got underneath the pattern, okay? Now, if Joe sees that, he just simply takes a little hitch step, which I think he's got time to do here, and hits the outside guy, who doesn't have as much separation, but a blown outside ball, it would get you nothing worse than an incomplete pass and maybe a complete pass. But you can't do anything prematurely to pull a zone defender into the throw. He can't see. When we talked about this last week, throwing it against a half coverage safety. Well, it's the same thing on the underneath coverage, is when it's zoned, they have nothing to worry about but you. Take your drop, see the ball from you can see the linebacker just staring him down, right? And if Joe just peeks or keeps stays a little bit more square up the field with his eyes, that break is a lot later. And let's just say the guy didn't bite it. Say he's in the throwing lane. You have to see that buzz, reset your feet, and throw the alternative receiver. You can't lock in, saying I'm throwing this come hell or high water, because that's what's going to happen. See the field, and know that you got an idea what you're going to do with the ball before the snap, but once the ball snapped, you have to confirm your thinking. By that, you mean, okay, he didn't do exactly what I thought was going to happen, and you have to respond accordingly in an expedient fashion and an accurate fashion. This is why this is the difference between intelligence and functional intelligence. Intelligence is, I know the whole thing. I've drawn it a million times. I've run it in practice. But functional intelligence is transferring that into the game and executing it under pressure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's show. I mean, with Wisconsin, did a great job with their play action game, as you said. I mean, Graham Mertz, he was solid, not spectacular. You just said you got to be reasonably good. He had some airmail throws in there, but he was always safe with the football.
Well, and he had 350 or 360 something yards, so worth a running offense to keep the defense honest,
Right. But he hit this naked slide play, and it is a good illustration of when we show Joe on this play. It's a good illustration again of how uncomfortable he was, how maybe the circumstances had led to him just being tight, not seeing the field as well. So let's first look at Wisconsin on this naked slide play. Here we go. 2nd and 10, a naked slide play for Wisconsin.
Okay. There you can see it. Okay. The wide receiver on the bottom of the screen, the widest guy's going to go in motion and fake a jet sweep to try and pull the inside linebackers out of the throwing lane for the over route. This next receiver is going to run a little corner route, probably about 20 to 25 yards deep. The backside receiver is going to run an over route behind the linebackers. They're the guys who are trying to jerk out of there with the naked,
Sorry about that. I cut the telestration a little short.
That's no problem. They can see the whole picture there. The quarterback is going to let the guy run through on the jet and then fake to the halfback and pistol and then roll out to the right with no escort because it is a naked bootleg, right? But that's not a big deal because he's got that wing back that's going to slide across the formation, simulating a split zone, okay? So on the snap of the ball, the linebackers and the D-line for that matter are not going to be sure whether it's actually a split zone, a bluff zone, or a naked bootleg, okay? That's what keeps that end honest. He can't just blow up the field because he'll get kicked out if they hand the ball off. So as he does that now, he's going to slip into the flat and look for that ball. As soon as he breaks, as soon as he gets past that wide receiver, he's going to get his head around fast because if somebody should blow up the field fast, their quarterback's got to be ready to give him the ball real quick. Well, here's the deal. The quarterback's going to come out. You're going to see it in a minute. He's going to peek to see if he's got that corner out because if he's got containment broke, Sam, if he got the guy to bite hard on the split zone, he can take a peek at that thing and see if he can get a nice bite out of the defense. But if for some reason it's a little dicey, he doesn't quite have containment broke, maybe now he's going to start looking to that slide guy. Uh-huh. Okay. And he would be the second option or the over route. You know what I mean? So if he breaks contain, he'll kind of look corner, over route, slide. If he can't break contain, he'll think more slide right now. Worst case scenario, I'll throw the ball away. Okay. Right. And then there's a third thing on a naked. If for some reason you make the fake, you start your rollout, and nobody covers the slide. For some reason, they all just got, all took the fake. Everybody, they went like a blind dog in a meat house, went running to the right, and the slide's wide open, right? Throw him the ball. Don't look to the corner. Don't look to the over. Don't look to just throw him the ball. Never give a sucker an even break. If he's wide open, give him the ball. End of discussion. And I think that's what happens here.
And you see,
nobody's got it. Give him the ball. You don't have to go through any read progression. They're giving you a 15-yard gain. Take it. Now, here's a great picture of it. This gives you a great picture of what it looks like. There's the squeeze by the 5.
Right.
The linebacker's coming downhill. There's no one in the flat. The corner gets ran off. So 2 people are occupied by the corner out.
Let's pause for a minute because you explained why the end just can't blow up field, and you see it here. You see him have to pause to respect that guy coming across.
Now hold that. Like hold it right there, Sam. There's a couple elements here that you have to understand. Now, number one is the tackle's blocked down, and now there is a threat posed of 3 different plays. Number 1 is a split zone. Number 2 is well, you're not going to get a bluff zone unless it was handed the other way, but he doesn't know that yet. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you get a naked. Now, understand. Look at the quarterback. Do you see the quarterback? Mm-hmm. Notice that the ball is out and exposed. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. The reason it's like that is so the end can see the ball possibly being exchanged to the back. That's why the quarterback wants that end to see that ball, because that's how he'd hand a stretch play off. He'd reach for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we tell the quarterback, hold that ball out there so that end continues to close, and then at the last second, pull it back. And as you pull it back, it's almost like you got a little string from the ball to your chin that snaps your chin around, okay, like a puppet.
Mm-hmm.
That ball, that chin gets snapped around so that if that end for some reason did blow up the field, you're ready to dish out the slide right away for nothing worse than a throwaway, if nothing else, or maybe a minimal gain. Well, in this case, that doesn't happen. You get big bites, but that quarterback reaching for that back, coupled with that tackle blocking down, that picture for that defensive end, that 5 technique, has to look like it could be a split zone.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Split zone, for people who don't know, this guy comes across and he kicks him out.
And kicks him out, correct. He kicks him out. So everything to him looks like a run, okay? Now, what are the things for the linebacker and for the defense end to tell him it might not be a run? Because these are things offensively you have to coach so that there's no tip-offs, okay? If for some reason that right tackle is a little too high, if that right tackle is too high, it's probably a pass. And this right tackle is kind of high if you watch it. He is kind of high. See that? See how high he is? And kind of shuffles his feet? That should tell the linebacker this might be a pass. But if he comes blowing off there like hell or high water, that's more likely to be a run. We used to tell the guys, I don't want it to look like a run. I want it to sound like a run, which means you come off and you can hear pads pop.
Yep. All right. So, yeah, we saw Michigan's linebackers get caught out of position all day. That is going to be a much needed area. I mean, I guess you could say that about multiple places defensively, but the linebackers got abused, over pursuit, misdirection, which we'll get to here a little later. But those things were glaring issues for Michigan all game long. But let's get now to talking about the comparison when Joe ran the naked slide. And this is an example of what we're talking about how they stopped trusting his eyes. This is still in the second. They didn't change quarterbacks until the third quarter, but it's a cumulative effect. I mean, all of these things add up, and this was just a basic play. This was one right in front of him. This wasn't a downfield pass per se. This was literally a play right in front of him, which is why we're showing it and why it illustrates that he just was rattled by this point. And it didn't get better, obviously, as the game went on. This is about the same play that we just saw Wisconsin.
Very similar. The only difference in this play is there's another corner route, but it's a 3-level flood, okay? Where, there you go. There's your picture, okay? You still got that corner route, but this time you actually have an extra receiver on that side to run the dude out. Now, on this naked, they're not simulating a stretch play from pistol. They're simulating a stretch play from offset. You can see where that back's lined up. But every other component's pretty similar. You still got the wingman coming on the slide. The quarterback's thinking isn't a hell of a lot different, okay? If he breaks contain, he can take a peek to see if he's got a chunk. If he doesn't break contain, be ready to get rid of the slide play. Don't wait all damn day on the corner. If they ascend underneath the flood, dish the ball to the slide. Let him run. You got a big gain. So as he comes out, the whole thing is, as he evaluates it, can I break contain or can I not break contain? Now, you get a secondary run through by the linebacker on a scrape, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now get the ball to the slide. You're not going to be able to get your feet set in time to throw the corner route, and the slide play, as you'll see from the end zone, is pretty much uncovered. It's as uncovered as the Wisconsin guy was. But you can see his eyes are still up the field, and he's got a linebacker bearing down on him. He's not going to break contain, Sam. The ball's got to come out. All right, now the end zone really demonstrates what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah. There's a secondary run through. Ball. Now give it to him. Give it to him. Oh no.
Yeah.
See, you see his eyes are still upfield on the sail route. And he's not going to get to the sail route unless he can get the contain broke.
Yeah, and so that, I mean, we could show you a bunch of other plays, but it would just be making the same point. And again, when they got in the third quarter, when they pulled them out of the game, it was when he had I think Cornelius Johnson on the hash, and with an inside release, and I mean the ground for the safety to close, Al, was minimal.
Yeah.
And there was just not a good window to throw that football.
Yeah. By that time, Sam, the quarterback had experienced so much compounded failure. And this is huge for quarterbacks now. When the failure compounds itself, it starts to affect your psyche. And you can tell because that decision was really a bad decision. Some of these other decisions are learning decisions, but I think Joe would cuss himself after the fact. So, why did I do that? Now that's just like, so my point is there had been so much compounded failure at that point that there was a confidence level lost where he was becoming indiscriminate. That's when you have to take the quarterback out. And this was one of the advantages, because a lot of people say, well, if you're the coordinator, you should be in the box. If you're the coordinator, you should be on the field. This is a case for the coordinator being on the field, because the coordinator can look in the guy's eyes and see if he's lost him, can see if he's no longer confident enough to continue to lead the team. That's not always easy to do when you're in the box. That's one advantage of being on the field.
And I checked on it and just checked around, and you're right. I mean, your experience, without even knowing, we haven't talked about this, but yeah, that he was pulled by Gaddis. Gaddis pulled him. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, the coordinator being there to look in his eyes can make that assessment. Can make that.
I mean, there's checks and balances to being in the box. God knows you can see better, all that stuff. I mean, I've heard them all because I was in the box too. I did both. But one of the disadvantages is not having a feel for the psyche of the offense. You're just watching it. It's like a video game upstairs. Okay. Well, a video game, you don't deal with personalities in a video game. You know what I mean? But when you're on the field in the thick of it, and you get a much better idea of how the team is responding to failure.
Yeah. It's a cumulative effect on him too. I mean, you got to feel like he comes out and of course first the defense gets a stop. But think about them on offense. Their first 3 plays out, interception. And then I believe it was a false start.
False start, first play, right?
Yeah, tackle for loss. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just, by the time you get to that third down, that 3rd and 17, I mean, they had plays behind the sticks like the first 3 plays. And so, that mounts. And then your defense is getting gashed too, and you got to believe he was feeling that. So let's start talking about the defense, the issues, especially on the edge, where whether it was a jet sweep or reverse. I mean, they had them. They had them with their head on a swivel all day long. Had them on skates, I should say, all day long. Whether it was blocking them like they were on skates or turning them around like they were on skates. So let's go to now the jet sweep, because it's, receivers having 100 yards rushing now. I mean, I've seen teams rack up a lot of rushing yards. I've seen Wisconsin rack up a lot of rushing yards. I mean, think back to 2010, 10 years ago, this same game, it was about the same amount of yardage. It was about 340 yards. It was over 6 yards a carry. It was definitely one of those games that you felt helpless in. But it was a different kind. They just lined up and blowing Michigan off the football. Here, they kept getting the edge all game long, and there was really no adjustment. And I found myself wondering, is the end, are they just, is it just not recognizing? Is it poor discipline? What are they doing to continuously suck them inside on the edge? And I thought you took note of how the technique of your tackle out there was played a huge role in that. So let's pull this up. Let me share my screen. All right, Al, here we go. This is a jet sweep that gets the edge. So,
okay, you can see it from the wide angle there, but that I don't know how much that tells you. I think the end zone is much more compelling. To start with, Sam, pause that if you would for a second. Just understand, Wisconsin for years has been the gold standard for jet sweeps. They've run this play as well, if not better, than anybody in the country. I know when Andy Ludwig, who's a kid that I coached, or not a kid anymore, but he's coached at several different stops. When he was coordinator at Wisconsin, he claims they would average 17 yards a carry on jet sweeps the last year he was there. I mean, that tells you something now. Well, the way they do it is a little different now. What they do is they try and get you to suck down by stepping away from the jet. And then once you take that bait, because as soon as you step down, the response by the 5 technique is going to be he's thinking that he's got to squeeze, right? Something could be coming. As soon as you take that bait, he'll step right back outside and look to hook you. And the left guard does the same thing, okay? He'll actually try and block the second level. He'll give a little nudge to that 2-eye technique, knowing that 2-eye technique isn't going to make the play on a sweep. This is the fastest hitting sweep in football because you take it on the run. You don't see that very often in football where you're actually moving when you get the ball, okay? So they are saying that the inside core is going to play hell getting to this sweep. All we got to do is finesse the outside guys to get it around the corner. So the left tackle is going to step inside, get the 5 to close a little bit, and then turn and hook him. The wide receiver is just going to basically block the guy around him, right in front of him. And the wingman is going to come around the bend and kind of clean up anything that shows. In this case, I believe it's the corner. So for some reason, number 3 wasn't able to block his man very well. 34 cleaned that up for him. Okay. And then, and I think this is important too, is number 14, the halfback. He will fake the zone play off the jet to freeze the core for a beat. So it helps the jet running back get to the perimeter quicker. Okay. It's because they will run the same play and actually hand the ball to the back without handing the ball to the jet. So it's all kind of a series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is where it all starts. This would be just a jet sweep to the left. And I think if you're watching, just watch the left tackle first on how he finesses the 5 technique.
See the step?
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you freeze that right there. You had a great look. Freeze it right back where you were because this is a really good picture. Okay. Now he's going to see how the 5 kind of stepped with that move. Now the left tackle is going to try and cover the 5 up. The left guard is going to kind of nudge the 2-eye and then work the second level of the linebacker, knowing the 2-eye can't make the play on the jet because it hits too fast. Now, if you watch the wing has just got his eyes inside to make sure nothing leaks. So for some reason, the 5 didn't take the bait with the tackle. He may end up cleaning up the 5.
And you know what I didn't realize when we were doing this, when we were doing this illustration, Al, the wing takes the step too.
Yeah, he does. He does, but he can't take too big a step because the jet will run up his butt. Okay. So he's got to get moving. All right.
That was just enough for him to hook.
Just enough to hook him. That's all it takes. See? Well, you say, okay, well, how the hell do you combat that? Right? That would be the next question. I said, what do you do? Well, you got to respond as quick as the tackle responds if you're the 5. Okay. If he steps down, yeah, you do have to take that a little bit. But as soon as he steps back out, you punch his outside shoulders and start controlling the block. You don't get swallowed. If you get swallowed, he's around the corner.
Him with reverses too, just to give you an example of what we're talking about. We didn't illustrate this one, but it further illustrates the issues on the edge here. It's back. And you can see it was.
Yeah, and this is just another play off the series in the jet. You see what's happening there, Sam? Mm-hmm. Everything looks the same, right? The tailback still hit inside on the zone. The jet comes across, he hands the ball up, and then hands the ball to the receiver back going the other direction. But initially, the play still looks just like the play we just broke down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They also had some typical part of a typical attack plan against Michigan: rub routes, crossing routes. or in this particular instance, what you call the Philly play.
Yeah.
Which we saw Indiana hit them. I mean, but who doesn't? I guess everyone runs this.
Everybody, I mean, this is the play now, okay? This is a play. What happened a few years back is the Philadelphia Eagles ran this play against the Patriots in the Super Bowl and hit 3 for 3 on it. All of them were big plays, and everybody stole the play. I mean, doggone it, you go to a practice. I watched a high school practice when I was in Texas, and you know what they were running? The Philly play. So what's the Philly play? And we just named it that because, you know, of what the Eagles did. Somebody probably ran the play before they ran it, but they made it popular. So
here real quick.
All right. That's a great look at how it starts, okay? Everybody looks like they're kind of attacking the middle, all right? But what's happening is the two ends on both sides are crossing and rubbing very tight. When we used to coach this play at the beginning, we would tell them, give them a low 5 as you go by. Because I knew if he low 5 the other guy, that they were rubbing so tight, it was going to be hard to run through all that, okay? Number two is the number 2 receiver is going to run and get a hook right over the top of the ball about 12 yards deep. And he's kind of the zone guy if one of the crossers don't open up, because in this instance, the crosser opens up against zone. So it's not bad against zone. It's really kind of designed for man-to-man, but it's really good against both. Now, I think if not the most important player in the whole play, at least one of the most important is the back. The running back is free releases right down the sideline. We used to tell them attack the bottom of the number and look for the ball quick, because if for some reason the linebacker's covering the back and he gets picked off, the first look, we used to alert the back. Before you go to the crossers, always alert to make sure they covered the back. And then once you see that that's canceled, now go into your progression. First crosser, second crosser, middle hook. Okay. So as you watch the ball snapped, he gives a peek to the back. He doesn't see it. Bam, there's first crosser's open, so he threw it to him. First crosser, second crosser, middle hook. First crosser's open, so he threw it to him. Alert the back, first crosser, second crosser, middle hook. Alert means peek to make sure they respected it. Don't stay on it forever, because in this case, the linebacker ran with it. You see McGrone running with the back.
Yep.
He didn't get picked off. So cancel that, first crosser. Second crosser's covered, first crosser's open. Don't turn down an open receiver.
Yeah,
that's how your eyes progress the read. Yeah, first crosser, second crosser,
I have to ask around about this, because the thing that struck me on this was when the safety saw the crosser, he retreated. And I wonder if that was this right here is what got me.
Yeah, good question. I couldn't answer that question. What was he supposed to do?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Yep. That is one to check on for sure. But it was again, they didn't have to throw it much, but when they did, you know, there was a lot of green. There was a lot of green grass. I mean, Graham Mertz had some bad balls in there where he missed some wide open guys on the day, fortunately, even though it still wound up being 49-11. But let's get back now to talking about some offense for Michigan. Before Joe went out, they went on a drive, Al. They went on a drive. It seemed like they had gotten a touchdown, but Chris Evans' knee was down short. But Joe had hit a few throws. They had made a few plays. Seemed like they had gotten some positive momentum. Play appropriately called short. His knee was down short of the goal line. It's now 4th and goal. And they go to a play that a lot of fans had them pulling their hair out. It's like, oh, this is, it's going to be a quarterback run. You got Ben Mason next to him. It's not a tailback. I heard all kinds of critiques of this play, but not any critiques about what went wrong on it. All right, so G lead, 4th and goal, down 28-0 in the second quarter. You score here, and maybe you go into into halftime with a little bit of positivity, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. We'll let it run, and then it'll get to the celebration.
Just watch the wide angle and see. You can see how he got held up. All right.
All right. So here are the telestrations.
Okay, there you go. Now pause it right there if you would, Sam.
Okay.
And let's talk about this now. See, you look at that. Doesn't look that tough, does it? Okay, the tight end that's a 6 technique, which means he's got a guy basically head up on him. He's going to get up and down with his inside foot and put his hat placement slightly on his outside number. Okay, don't want to step too wide because if he knifes, you could get penetration. You got issues. That's why you should step first with your inside foot. Now he's got to engage that because that is where we're going to determine where the ball is going to be run for the most part. Okay. So the tight end's got to win that block, or at least get a stalemate. Get your butt kicked with dignity. You know what I mean? Get in there and make it so that it's hard for him. The right tackle is going to block down on the 3 and not allow, hopefully, any penetration. Okay. The guard is going to pull and kick out the first thing that shows outside the tight end. In this instance, it's probably going to be that guy slightly off the ball. Center's going to step to the A gap, and he's going to try and get that Mike linebacker knowing it ain't going to be easy. Mm-hmm. So he's going to try and tie him up the best he can and hope like hell that back can, he only got a yard to go. So hopefully we'll fall forward before he gets too good a hit. Okay. And the backside basically just zones each gap. Okay. The fullback now, what he's going to do is he's going to let that guard clear in front, and then he's going to try and isolate that front side linebacker. But he knows sometimes there's a possibility the Mike linebacker, the middle linebacker, could show up first because the center can't get him. You may have to isolate the Mike and have the quarterback run over the other guy. Remember, we're only talking about a yard here. We're not talking about breaking for a 90-yard touchdown. So the fullback is going to fill for that pulling guard, lead on the first thing to show in the B gap, probably that front side linebacker, but no, you may have to adjust. The quarterback's going to step back and allow all that to develop in front of him, but don't wait too long, right? Just make sure that the fullback clears and then watch what happens. Enter through the B gap with your eyes on anything that could happen. If they knife that 6 technique, you may have to take it a little wider. If the 6 technique plays stout and just stays there, you may just have to drop your shoulders and just, muscle your way into the end zone. He's a big kid. I mean, you look at it, you got a yard to go. You got a 240-something pound quarterback. You got I don't know how big that fullback is, but I promise you, he probably a biscuit over 250, and a big old nice round butt tight end. You got a lot of big bodies there and not very far to go. The play is not necessarily a bad call. It's a typical goal line play that everybody and mother runs. Okay. But the call and the execution are 2 different things. Okay. So as you run it.
All right. Now pay attention here. We'll just point your eyes here. As Al said, get to the outside shoulder of the 6 technique right here and lock him up. Or like you said, Al, lose with dignity, right?
Yeah, well, you get your ass kicked with dignity. That's it. That means don't get knocked into the backfield. Tie him up enough so we can make a read.
Right, here we go. We'll let it run.
I don't know what that is.
I
don't know that. Yeah. Now, see what happens here is because the tight end.
I'll let it run. Let me go ahead and let it run here, so you can see how it blows up everything else.
Yeah. It affects everything. I don't know.
So now that you see how the guard.
Yeah, the guard got
pulling at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, the guard got spoofed. He was supposed to pull and block outside, but he saw that big color in the hole, so he's, I better block it. Now that screws up the fullback. The tight end steps so far inside that the 6 works outside, goes around him, he leaks, and if he didn't make the tackle, the other 2 are going to. The bottom line is the tight end's got to stay engaged. If the guy wants to work outside, that's fine. Just take him outside. And the fullback will fill inside. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And you still got a pretty good deal, but there was just so much indecisiveness created by poor technique.
Yeah, so I find myself saying a couple of things, Al. I mean, I think we've detailed here over the first few weeks how there are several examples of one guy blowing up the play. So that's number one. That has been a recurring theme for them this season, and you hope they fix it and get better. I mean, Michigan State, it was an epidemic of one guy blowing up potential explosive plays in that game. Perimeter blocking since game one, whether it's tight ends or wide receivers.
Yes, deteriorated. You're right, Sam. Because the first game, I was very encouraged by the perimeter blocking. I thought they did a great job, but for some reason it's deteriorated. I don't know.
Yeah, that has gone. That has gone downhill in a very big way. And you look at when we talk about augmenting the run game with add-ons or run controls, like you said. I mean, they tried to throw some bubbles in this game, and they were snuffed out. I mean, you just didn't get much, if any, blocking from your receivers. The tight ends missed a number of blocks in this game. So those are things that if they are going to be better, they have it in them. Executing blocks on the perimeter and then trying to clean up some of these MAs, these costly MAs that we see where it's like, man, that's just stepping the wrong way.
Yeah.
That's stepping. I mean, you remember we did in the Michigan State game, we did the duo, the duo from Pistol, right?
Right.
Wildcat duo from Pistol. It was perfect. It was set up perfectly, but you had a guy go the wrong way and wind up blocking no one. That is, if it happens often enough, I mean, I don't know what you point to. I think it's why you hear Jim Harbaugh say we got to figure out what they aren't understand. Why can't we carry it from the practice field to the game field? These basic things like who to block, which way to go.
Right.
Not just getting beat. I think if they were just getting beat, you'd be like, okay. I mean, this is something different than just getting beat, and it's happened a lot. And it's blown up the run game for sure. It's absolutely blown up the run game, and they struggle enough as it is, especially with the guys that are absent. But there was some positive to take away from this game offensively, something that they may build on, and we'll get to the psyche of the quarterback shortly, Al, because I want you to talk about that, having dealt with maybe, either pulling a guy or intensifying the competition with your starter in season. I want you to talk about that. But before we do, we got to bring up Cade McNamara because he came in after that, that series we were talking about where, the throwing it basically to a receiver with inside release against cover 2 where the safety is right there. That turned out to be the final straw. They pulled him after that, pulled Joe after that. They went to Cade McNamara, said, we'll show you his plays, where he came out and he just dialed it right up, and then we'll illustrate the touchdown pass, the fade. All right, Al, short post to Ronnie Bell.
This was just pass. Yeah, this is just getting off good, Hits his third step in a gun. He just fires it right on the money. Good weight transfer. Got an open receiver right off the top and does a really nice job of playing catch. Protection is solid. The ball's out fast, Sam. The ball's out fast. Not a hell of a lot of evaluating. He saw the throwing lane, let it rip.
Now we'll bring up his second one. All right, and this was an improv play. This was
an improv, but a great throw off an improv.
Yeah, he was feeling pretty. He came out, got his feet wet, got a good taste in his mouth, and
yeah, he got flushed right. He got flushed right, threw the ball on the run, found a guy, kept his eyes down the field, looked to pass, then run. I'm going to pass, and then run. It wasn't one look, nope, I'm going to take off. And bought himself, because if he waits any longer than that, he's out of room.
Get you the touchdown pass.
Yeah, this was beautiful on a lot of levels. Now, this was really nice because, well, when you pull it up, you'll see. I'll explain the concept to you and why I think he did what he did. Okay, you got a 2x2 with short motion on the bottom of the screen, and I'm gonna let it fire away, and you can see the routes.
First thing we do is we highlight the safety.
Highlight the safety because he's going to dictate whether you're going to make that throw or how you're going to make that throw to the outside receiver at the top of the screen, because that's who ends up getting the ball, okay? If he blows over the top of that thing, you may have to get off that receiver, but he doesn't. And the reason he doesn't is because Cade does a good job of holding him just enough and then placing the ball to the outside to where there's no way that free safety can help that corner.
All right, I want to start the illustration now, Al.
Yeah, let's start the illustration. You got a drive route here on the bottom, and you got a slot square out on the top. Now, the outside receiver, the guy we used to call the X receiver, is going to run deep and take his man. If you like that matchup, take it. But if you do, make damn sure that it stays one-on-one. So hold that safety so he can't help him over the top, okay? Don't just stare it down and allow that guy to blow over the top. And if you do stare it down, you better back shoulder him, okay? Because we don't want to have the safety be involved in it, okay? If for some reason that corner was to bail or you don't like the matchup, you can check the square out to the slot. If you don't like that, keep your feet moving, and you have a little drive concept, which we detailed a week ago, coming into your vision from right to left, okay? The back did not release on this because I think Wisconsin blitzed and he picked it up. So, but, you know, I'm making something probably simple more difficult than it is because he just sees that matchup. He holds that safety long enough.
Yeah, I think that's the important takeaway that you just highlighted. We highlighted the safety, and you mentioned him holding that safety, and you'll be able to see this on the end zone view, and compare it to how on the interception with Joe. Now, we've seen Joe do that better. If you followed these breakdowns, we have showed instances where, and I can show you one on this in this game where Joe did the thing with his eyes to freeze defenders. But Cade McNamara, to your point, Al, on this play, holds that safety a beat. And that was a key. That was a big key here. All right, so we'll let this go.
Let's see his helmet. Now he peeks as soon as a couple of factors here, Sam. A couple of factors. One is he held the safety just long enough and he threw it off a 3-step plant throw. Now watch when the ball comes out. There is no hitch.
Yeah,
so if you don't hitch, he can't pick up your aerial till real late. So now the ball's gone. The wings are still looking forward. Now the right foot hits the ground, ball's out.
Right, yeah.
Safety's way late.
I mean, it's subtle. It's subtle now. But watch. You mentioned throwing on his third step, and he doesn't really look until that point. As he's throwing, it's like he knows where he's going with this football.
That's
you can tell he knows where he's going.
That's why, since he does know that, keep those Michigan wings looking straight up the field. Now, that right foot hits. Now you can look and get it out. The longer you hold it, the more you hitch, the more they can respond. That doesn't mean you never hitch, because there are times to hitch that. But you just can't, you got to use it, don't abuse it.
Yeah, so, you know, there was a play in here where Joe kind of did what you, and we've seen him do it in other games. It was like the only time in this game where we saw the good eyes. I mean, he had a couple good throws, but, you know, I think the eyes are the part that had him scared, as you know, as the coaching staff.
Yeah, it's the toughest thing, Sam. It's the toughest thing for the quarterback to get used to when he's transitioning from high school to college football, and hence pro from there, is learning that you can't stare down throws. People are going to jump them, you know?
All right, you'll be able to see this from the end zone.
There's a good example. They did not know where this ball was going. Now watch the wings on the helmet. You got no jump. And that was a fairly tight window.
Yeah. You just got to do that all the time.
Yeah,
right?
Well, you got to have faith that you can look the guy off and have enough time to make a good decision when you hit the back of your drop when you peek into the throwing lane. You don't cheat it and start peeking it down so quick that you're pulling defenders into the throw.
All right, so let's talk about handling this moving forward. You laid out a few basic things. Number one, they got to find the guys that are going to fight from, you know, the time the clock starts till it stops. That's a competition thing that you figure out in practice. I think it's one of those things where you identify the leaders on your team that can give the rest of the team some of that too, whether they're captains or not. So that's another thing. And you said who's doing it, when you do it, that kind of thing. But I want to focus specifically on the quarterback. I mentioned all those things because quarterback is not their only thing that they have to worry about or work on, right?
Well,
That's
in
why I mentioned
fairness
all those
to
things.
Joe Milton, he is not. He's one deal. He's the most focused, so they'll talk more about him. But he is a long way from the only problem that they have right now.
But understanding what Jim Harbaugh said on Monday, that they were going to open it up, and trying to interpret what that means. Is that opening it up to push Joe more? Is it a true toss-up, and whoever has the best week of practice starts? What does it mean? I think it means the latter. I think it means the latter. And now can I say that for sure? Time will tell, but that's the kind of vibe that I'm picking up. So my question to you is, let's assume, for the sake of argument, Al, that they wind up starting Cade McNamara in this game. How do you handle your former starter? And I'm not saying that's definitely going to be the case, but you got all kind of factors that could lead to him being back out there on the football field. Hell, it might be one of those deals where they're going to give both quarterbacks snaps. So either you're managing him mentally for both guys seeing the field, or you're managing him mentally so if you need him, you can go get him and he can come back in there and run the team. How do you do that? I mean, have you been in situations where you've benched the guy, and I'm not saying they've benched him yet, but where you've benched the guy and you went back to him and mentally he was there enough to come back and play well?
Well, the first thing you have to convey to him, and yes, I have, in 30 years of coordinating, this has come up more times than I like to think. But the first thing you have to make Joe Milton aware of is there's a reason we picked you to be the starting quarterback, because we felt that you were capable. That hasn't changed. But we're results-oriented managers. And if you don't show us the results we need, we have to go to the next option. That doesn't mean that we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a reason we picked you to be the starting quarterback. That opportunity will present itself again. You have to be prepared to seize the moment when it does, because we still believe in you. But right now, we're sputtering, and we need to change some players so that we get a little bit of a spark. This may work. And again, I'm talking to you like I talked to Joe. This may work. This may not. But either way, you have to be prepared to answer the call if it doesn't. We can't, as coaches, continue the same behavior and expect different results. I had a coach tell me a long time ago, John Ralston, when I was working in the USFL, he says, Al, you better change the players before they change the coaches.
So here's what I'm going to say to you, Coach Borges. Look, man, I played well in game 1. I played okay in games 2 or 3. Not great, certainly not as well as game 1, game 2. But would you say I mean, we sat here, we've gone over the film. Would you say I struggled in game 2 or I struggled in game 3? I had some misses, but more good than bad. This was my first really bad game. There are other players who've had really bad games from game 2 on, and they hadn't been changed. So why are you changing me now, Coach?
Unfortunately, I have to see progress, not digression. You're a young quarterback who's learning on the run, and I have to see progress. We're a 1-3 team, and you play a very high-profile position. So if I looked at you in the eye, if you looked me in the eye and said, Coach, I'm getting better, don't give up on me. Hell, I couldn't look you back in the eye and say I should. I should let you keep playing. But I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing digression. Does that mean that I've given up on you? Hell no. I'm never going to give up on you until you give up on yourself. But I can't consistently watch the same behavior and expect different results. I want to see progress. I want to see it in practice, and I want to see it carried over in a game. And I don't want to be recoaching the same mistakes that I coached last week.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, practice will determine everything. If Joe showed improvement from that, which truly was an anomaly. I know he's caught a lot of flack, and I think people rode him too hard for games 2 and 3. And if you go back and give it an honest analysis, you say he did more good than bad in those games. But there's just no Not many redeeming qualities about the Wisconsin game. Bad enough for them to pull them. Bad enough for them to say, hey, we need to open this up for his eyes to be where, basically unpredictable from that second interception on. And so that clearly bothered them enough to say, we need to maybe do something different. And Cade went in there and made the most of the opportunity he had. And so let's see if he can carry it over to practice. Let's see if he can carry it over to games. But something tells me you haven't heard the last of Joe Milton. So
Joe Milton's too talented. Joe Milton is learning on the job, and he's not getting a lot of help. Let's just keep that in mind now. He's not getting, when he did get a lot of help, exemplified by the first game, you saw what he was capable of. So, but you have to take advantage of every opportunity, Sam, and you got to show me that you're learning as you go and that some of the mistakes are ironing themselves out. I don't have to tell you to look this throw off, and it doesn't take 5 games for you to figure that out. And we're now 1-4, because at one point I'm going to say, you haven't figured it out. I'm going to have somebody else try it. And then when you look at it from that perspective, you realize the magnitude or how important it was that you be coached and do what you're coached to do. Then when you get your next opportunity, there's repercussions for not doing it right. You tend to do it better. So some guys never do, but I think this kid will. This kid's got a hell of a lot of ability. You will see him again before it's all said and done, but he's just got to shore up his game,
Gotcha. Well, Al, that'll wrap it up for this week. And I think the best part of analysis that we can offer is, like I said, Al, improve results, play a worse opponent. that can help. That is not the only elixir, but it helps a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, we used to tell them, get better games.
Yeah, here's the thing. Rutgers might be saying the same thing about Michigan, right? So
yep, that's right.
You certainly can't single them out. They're saying the same thing about the Maize and Blue. We'll be back next week to talk about it. Hope you can join us then. Thanks a lot for spending time with us here on this Zoom. We'll see you next week.